Imagine a man who had it all. A sprawling penthouse overlooking a city that never sleeps, a fleet of luxury cars at his beck and call, and a name that echoed in the most exclusive boardrooms. This was Arthur Vance. He wasn't just wealthy. He was a titan of industry, a modern-day Midas whose every touch turned to gold. He built an empire from the ground up, fueled by ambition and an unyielding belief that success was the only metric that mattered. His life was a whirlwind of high-stakes deals, extravagant parties, and a constant, relentless pursuit of more. More power, more wealth, more recognition. He thought he had conquered the world. But the world has a funny way of reminding you who's really in charge. The fall was as swift as it was brutal. A series of disastrous investments, a market crash that no one saw coming, and a betrayal from his closest confidant. One by one, the pillars of his empire crumbled. The penthouse was sold, the cars were repossessed, and the name that once opened every door was now whispered in cautionary tailies. Arthur Vance, the Titan, was left with nothing but a few $1,000s and the clothes on his back. He was a ghost in the city he once ruled, a painful reminder of how quickly fortunes can turn. Desperate and broken, with nowhere else to go, he bought a one-way bus ticket to a place he hadn't seen in over 30 years, his forgotten hometown. He stepped off the bus into a world that felt both alien and achingly familiar. The air didn't smell of exhaust and ambition. It smelled of damp earth and pine. The towering skyscrapers were replaced by rolling hills and humble, time-worn houses. This was Havenwood, the small rural town he had eagerly escaped as a young man, vowing never to return. To him, it had represented everything he was running from: simplicity, slowness, a life without grand purpose. Now, it was his only refuge. He walked the dusty main street, a stranger in his own past, feeling the weight of his failure with every step. The grand life he had built was a distant dream. This stark reality was his new, humbling existence. With his last few $100s, he rented a tiny, run-down cabin on the edge of town, the kind of place he wouldn't have even glanced at in his old life. The first few weeks were a raw, painful struggle. The silence of the countryside was deafening to a man used to the city's constant hum. He was used to giving orders, not fixing a leaky roof or chopping his own firewood. Every simple task was a monumental effort, a harsh lesson in self-reliance. He fought against it, his pride still clinging to the ghost of the man he used to be. He was angry, bitter, and profoundly alone. He'd spend nights staring at the star-filled sky, a sight he'd never seen from his city penthouse, feeling an emptiness that no amount of money had ever managed to fill. One morning, driven by a gnawing hunger he couldn't ignore, he swallowed his pride and went to the local farmer's market, looking for work. Not a high-powered consultancy gig, but any work. He was met with curious, wary glances. News of his spectacular fall had, of course, reached even this quiet corner of the world. But one old farmer, a man named Silas, with hands like worn leather and eyes that held a lifetime of wisdom, offered him a job. It wasn't glamorous. It was mending fences, hauling feed, and waking up before the sun. Arthur, the former CEO, hesitated. This was beneath him, but hunger and desperation are powerful motivators. He accepted. Working on the farm was brutal. His body, softened by years of boardroom meetings and chauffeured rides, ached in ways he never knew possible. His hands, once accustomed to signing multi-million-dollar contracts, were now blistered and calloused. Silas wasn't an easy boss. He was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. He taught Arthur not through lectures, but through shared labor. He taught in the rhythm of the seasons, the language of the soil, the quiet dignity of a day's hard work. Arthur started to change. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the anger began to subside, replaced by a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that strangely felt more satisfying than any corporate victory. He began to connect with the people of Havenwood, not as the fallen tycoon, but as just Arthur. He shared coffee with the woman who ran the local diner, helped the mechanic fix a sputtering engine, and listened to the stories of the town's elders. These people had little in terms of material wealth, but their lives were rich in ways he was only just beginning to understand. They found joy in community and helping a neighbor and watching a sunset. They measured success not by bank balances, but by the strength of their relationships and the peace in their hearts. Arthur started to see that the poverty he feared wasn't a lack of money, but a lack of connection. One evening, as he was helping Silas repair an old tractor, the farmer finally spoke about Arthur's past. "You know," Silas said, not even looking up from his work, "a strong tree isn't one that never faces a storm. It's one that has deep roots to hold it steady when the winds blow." The words struck Arthur with the force of a physical blow. All his life he had been building a magnificent, towering tree with no roots. He had focused on the branches, the leaves, the visible signs of success, while neglecting the very foundation that gives life meaning. He had chased power and prestige, believing they were the source of strength, only to find they were the first things to be swept away in the storm. This realization was his true turning point. It wasn't about regaining his fortune. It was about regrowing his roots. He started to find a new kind of wealth in Havenwood. The wealth of a shared meal with friends. The wealth of watching a seed he planted sprout from the earth. The wealth of a quiet moment, sitting on his porch, feeling the cool evening breeze. He learned to bake bread, to identify birds by their song, to fix almost anything with his own two hands. He was no longer Arthur Vance, the failed CEO. He was just Arthur, the man who knew how to mend a fence and listen with an open heart. He had lost an empire, but had found himself. Years passed. Arthur never left Havenwood. He eventually saved enough to buy a small plot of land next to Silas's farm, where he started his own organic vegetable garden, selling his produce at the very market where he once begged for work. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't rich. By the world's standards, he was a simple man living a simple life. But for the first time, he was truly happy. He had journeyed from the pinnacle of power to the depths of poverty, only to discover that true wealth isn't something you acquire. It's something you cultivate within. His journey wasn't a story of failure. It was a story of coming home, a powerful reminder that sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores the deeper journeys of life.